What's up, everybody? We're back. Corey Hughes, Bloody History. So, yesterday I launched my new project, my new show, Bloody History World War II. It is available only on Substack. The link is in the show notes here today. But I had a bunch of people sign up already and subscribe, and I really appreciate that. So, my goal is to get 100 people subscribing to my new Substack. If I can get 100 people subscribed to the new Substack, it will all have been worth it. So it's focused on World War II, the Holocaust, Hitler, all the juicy stuff that everyone else is too much of a fucking pussy to talk about. So we're going to talk about it a lot. And everybody who subscribes to the Substack will get an invite link to my research supporter chat, which we have a great time in there every day. And so I'd really like to see you guys sign up and become part of the conversation. As now my field of study is growing to once again encompass World War II and the Holocaust, which that's what got me into history in the first place, right? Thanks to Mr. Ryan Dawson. I interviewed Ryan Dawson back in 14 or 15 for my anonymous podcast. And it was a good interview, but it prompted me into action. It really did, seeing what he had done with 9/11. And so the first thing I did was the Holocaust. I watched a whole bunch of Ryan's old Holocaust videos that he released under the moniker of, what did he call himself? Denier Bud. Okay. So Denier Bud, if you didn't know, is Ryan Dawson. All right. Ryan Dawson is Denier Bud. And how do I know this? Because he fucking told me. All right. Because he fucking told me. So if you notice that voice, that low voice of Denier Bud, he did that in fucking like Audacity or something. So funny. But if you go back and you watch those, they're fucking great. And they got me really interested in the Holocaust. And then after spending about 3 years on the Holocaust, I made a documentary with Ryan called The Holocaust, how psychological warfare. Oh, wait a minute. What did I call it again? Jesus Christ. My own movie. I don't even remember the fucking title. If you've seen my movie, you know it. It's how psychological warfare shapes belief and culture or something like that. So, but Ryan released it under the name Spinning Squirrel, and that cocksucker fucking edited like my first 30 minutes of the film or 40 minutes of the film because he didn't like the way that he said he thought that I created the first half hour of my film was a pro-Holocaust. It was too pro-Holocaust. It was like I was just letting them talk. I'm like, you dumb shit. You got to give them enough fucking rope to hang themselves with, and that's exactly what I did. So he ended up butchering my film, editing it, and releasing Spinning Squirrel. Whereas my original uncut version of that is still available on Odyssey if you go and search for it. It's 100 times better than his butchered fucking version, but because it's smooth, it's edited clean. His narration was like done professionally. It was he didn't cut the film to edit and insert new audio clips, which is what he did to his edited version of Spinning Squirrel, which I thought was total junk. But yeah, Spinning Squirrel was my film. I made that from top to bottom, and all he did was the narration. And then when I refused to edit it to change the first half hour, he went ahead and did it on his own. And it's obvious. So, but nonetheless, I do have a solid background in the Holocaust, and so, which is complete bullshit, by the way, total fucking nonsense. And we are going to be talking about that on Bloody History World War II on Substack. And so the thing is, there's a lot of material there, okay? I'm talking like fucking years of material. It'll take me 3-4 months just to get through Mein Kampf. But we're breaking it up with other things, right? We're going to do a couple days of Mein Kampf. We're going to do a couple days of some direct Holocaust debunking. And then we'll do, some miscellaneous books. Like we're going to read through Kaufman's Germany Must Perish. We're going to read through a whole bunch of literature from that era, showing what led to that era in the first place, right? It's going to be an extremely in-depth analysis of the factors that led to the alleged Holocaust, right? I'm not really overly into like the battles of World War II. You know, some guys go off on like they fucking are experts on this. You know, they had 3 battalions here and 2 battalions. I don't know anything about that. I'm more interested in the politics, the policy, the realities of what happened to the Jews under Nazi occupation, or National Socialist occupation, I should say, because I'm going to try really hard to not use the term Nazi because it's a slur. It's a genuine slur. So, but it's going to be an amazing, amazing journey that I hope that you will take with me. It is a daily show, right? 5 days a week, 20 to 25 shows per month is what you're going to get. So go to Substack, bloodyhistory.substack.com, and you can sign up there. And I very much appreciate it. But today we are going to get back to Roy Truly and Marion Baker and some of the events that went on inside the book depository. This is in the Roy Truly FBI file. That's put together by NARA, which is the National Archive, I think the National Archive Repository, something, I don't fucking know. But Roy Truly, very important because he was connected to Fred Korth through his wife. He has been with the book depository for 20 plus years. There's some really, really shady shit that went on around the book depository, and maybe we'll get to William Weston's article on the CIA and the school book depository and the statements of Elise Dean Glaze, which are all pretty much indicate that the school book depository was some sort of intelligence front. Jack Kaysen, who was the co-owner of the book depository, who no one's ever heard from. He made a very brief statement, like less than a half a page, which we'll get to in the next couple days. But this guy was the head of the Foreign Legion Post, or American Legion, in Dallas. And the American Legion Post, I guess, had some direct connections to CIA intelligence and fucking Freemason bullshit and all that kind of stuff. So, plus Mr. Kaysen, Jack Kaysen, left the book depository at 12:10 p.m., right? The first sightings of the men on the 6th floor happened between 12:10 and 12:15. So it is becoming more and more obvious to me that Jack Kaysen, owner of the book depository and president of the book depository, who no one's ever read a full fucking statement from. He was not interviewed by the Warren Commission, not talked to by goddamn anybody except for the FBI in '64, where he gave a generic half a page statement that matched most people's statements in reference to the employees of the book depository. But I'm pretty convinced that this guy was directly involved in the assassination. I'm pretty sure he's the one who let the assassins in the back door of the building before he departed at 12:10 p.m. because he knew what was going to happen. So if you go and look at Mr. Jack Kaysen's Find a Grave page, he was not military, but he was wearing some kind of fucking strange uniform with like a sunburst on his shoulder patch. So very, very unusual. The biggest thing about Mr. Kaysen that's extremely unusual is there's no information on him, really. When you get to Roy Truly and you get to O.V. Campbell and these guys have statements with the Warren Commission, various probes, like everyone talked to these guys. There's all kinds of information reference these guys. You get to Mr. Jack Kaysen and it's like, who the hell is this guy? I didn't even hear about him until like a couple months ago, which is my fault, obviously my fault, for not digging into the book depository sufficiently. But God, it's unbelievable how little information there is on Jack Kaysen and his activities that day in the book depository. So, but one thing I'm pretty sure of, and that's that Lee Harvey Oswald never worked there, and that he certainly was not there the day of the assassination. If you're going to tell me that Lee Harvey Oswald was at the book depository on November 22nd, 1963, you need to be able to provide me some evidence, right? The burden of proof is not on me to debunk the idea that Oswald was there. If you're going to say that Lee Harvey Oswald was in the book depository, show me some fucking evidence, because I haven't seen any evidence that Lee Harvey Oswald was present in the book depository that isn't easily explained by the presence of William Seymour, who was obviously there because he's photographed in he's picked up in the Robert Hughes film, Back Behind the Depository. He's also clearly the man who was involved in the stop with Roy Truly and Marion Baker, which didn't happen in the second floor lunchroom while Oswald was drinking a Coke, okay? The entire Oswald drinking a Coke story is so fucking stupid. And I believe the entire reason they came up with the Oswald was drinking a Coke story, and it had to be within a minute or two after the assassination, was because it completely covers the fact that the patrolman Marion Baker was involved in an arrest outside of the book depository of Emilio Santana, who fired from the Daltex building and then fled north on Houston Street. If you observe the video, the film of Baker getting off his motorcycle, he does not run to the book depository. He runs past the entrance to the book depository to Houston Street. That's what you can see. I forget if it's the couch film. I think it was the couch film. I think I referenced that in my book as the couch film, but I might be mistaken on that. It might have been one of the other films, DCA or one of those films. But it's clear that Baker gets off his motorcycle and runs past the book depository. Okay. Then, as we went over yesterday, none of those people who say that they saw Baker enter the book depository, none of those were personal statements. None of those were written statements by the FBI. 100% of those were interpretations and reports written by the FBI days after the assassination, right? Days after Baker changed his story. So let me read to you right here. This is a memo from J.W. Fritz. I said it was Curry yesterday, but it was Fritz. I always get Curry and Fritz mixed up. So this is a memo written by J.W. Fritz, December 23rd, 1963, page 2. It says, while we were still searching the building, Mr. Roy Truly, and he has his address there, reported to us one of his men was missing, a Lee Harvey Oswald, whose address was 2515 West 5th Street in Irving, Texas. We also found this man had been stopped by Officer Baker while coming down the stairs. Mr. Baker says that he stopped this man on the third or fourth floor on the stairway, but Mr. Truly identified him as one of his employees, and he was released. After seeing that this man was apparently, it looks like it says running, two of the detectives and myself left the building and came to the office for an identification check and other information, and soon found that he was the same man who had shot Officer Tippit. Okay, so here, there's no mistaking it. There is no mistaking whatsoever that the incident that is now currently reported as having happened in the second floor lunchroom where Oswald was drinking a Coke. It is clear in Baker's handwritten notes, his typewritten statement, and this memo from J.W. Fritz, December 23rd, 1963. Now we have 3 documents, official documents, that clearly indicate that, number one, the man they're talking about, Lee Harvey Oswald, was clearly stopped as he was coming down the stairs by Baker and Truly identified him as an employee, and he was released. Okay, this memo here makes no mention of the second floor lunchroom. Okay, no mention of a Coke, because that's not what was originally reported. And look at the date here, December 23rd, 1963. This is a month after the assassination, and this memo still seems to have the information that allegedly Oswald was coming down the stairs when he was stopped. Now, this caused me to completely rewrite the time frame of what happened. This combined with the statements made by Robert McNeil, because Robert McNeil left the building at 12:37. He said no cops entered the building while he was there or before he got there. Okay. And that makes sense to me, because if Baker would have entered the book depository and was on the first floor within even just say a minute of the assassination, who would he have run into? He would have run into a whole bunch of guys. He would have run into Lauren Hall. He would have run into Bill Shelley, Bill Lovelady, Buell Frazier. He doesn't mention any of those people in his report ever. But they were in there clearly about a minute after the assassination and before 90 seconds, 100%. And so when Robert McNeil was in the building and he left at 12:36 or 12:30, the call was at 12:36 to his New York news desk, and at 12:37 he's out the door. He said that there were 3 men in there who were all exceedingly calm. Okay, those 3 men were obviously Shelley, Lovelady, and Buell Frazier. Okay, not Roy Truly, and he left at 12:36. And so the idea that any of the stuff with Baker and Truly happened within 90 seconds is ridiculous, especially when you take into consideration the Willis 10 photo where the man in black is getting arrested in front of the book depository and one of the cops is holding a rifle, right? I'm pretty convinced that that's Emilio Santana being arrested after he ran north on Houston Street and after Baker ran past the book depository to Houston Street to take him into custody. Add to that the statement of Robert McNeil where no cops had entered the building while he was there or before him or until he left. That puts the earliest that Baker would have entered the book depository at 12:37. That means that I put William Seymour back inside the book depository about 12:33, 12:34. And then he takes the elevator, which is already turned back on by William Shelley. He takes it back up to the 6th floor where he does something up there. Who knows what he does? He begins his descent down the stairs. Okay? He's stopped by Baker and Truly on the stairs, as is written in this memo by J.W. Fritz. They detain him for a minute or two. This puts it at about 12:39. Baker and Truly continue up to the roof. But this man, who is William Seymour, not Oswald, continues down the steps at 12:39 p.m. until he gets to the floor, the ground floor at exactly 12:40, where he exits the side of the book depository, comes down the slope of the hill, where he's seen by Fred Robinson? And he's seen by Roger Craig. He gets into the light green Nash Rambler that is owned by Lawrence Howard, as is confirmed by HSCA testimony and records dug up by John Armstrong. They then head to Oak Cliff, where they're dropped off at a safe house, and William Seymour, wearing the light brown jacket that he was detained in, on the stairwell on the 3rd or 4th floor, not the 2nd floor lunchroom where he's drinking a Coke. This cracks me up because you got fucking idiots out there like Bart Camp, who wrote a whole fucking book on Prayer Man, where he goes into detail on Oswald drinking the Coke in the lunchroom. Like, these people are so fucking stupid. 60 fucking years that Kennedy has been dead, and motherfuckers still don't even realize that this incident on the 2nd floor lunchroom never fucking happened. It's so stupid. It is so fucking stupid. Well, all you have to do is read the 3 documents that are at the portal to Texas history. Go find them. Put in Marion Baker and put in Fritz and you'll find them. Okay? This is the fucking state of Kennedy research, and this is why I fucking hate these cocksuckers so much, because this shit took me about 10 minutes to fucking figure out, and motherfuckers been working on this for 60 years. Okay? The Kennedy research community is a bunch of low IQ fucking knuckle draggers. It's truly unfucking believable. But what we have here is we have William Seymour coming down the stairs. He's stopped by Baker and Truly about 12:38 p.m. They detain him. Truly identifies William Seymour, not Oswald, as an employee. He's wearing the light brown jacket that he's captured in the Robert Hughes film at about 12:33 p.m., about 5 minutes earlier. And then he continues his descent down the stairs, where he exits the book depository at 12:40 p.m., where he's seen by Fred Robinson wearing the light brown jacket. He's seen by Roger Craig wearing the light brown jacket, although Roger Craig wasn't sure if it was a jacket or a shirt. And just like I said, they get into the light green Nash Ramble and they take off. That's what happened. Okay? So let me return to Roy Truly here, and we're going to continue on with these documents. Detective Baker, Homicide and Robbery Bureau, Dallas Police Department, advised that the Dallas Police Department motorcycle patrolman who first entered the Texas School Depository building with Mr. Roy Truly and who observed Lee Harvey Oswald in the company snack bar on the 2nd floor of that building immediately after the shooting of President Kennedy was patrolman Marion Baker. Okay, so here we have a very interesting contradiction, okay? So this is dated 11/26, 4 days after the assassination. But here they're already coming up with the second room story with a Coke, right? This is 4 days after the assassination. But when you jump back to Fritz's memo, December 23rd, he's here bringing up the 3rd and 4th floor lunchroom. The 3rd and 4th floor stairwell story, not the lunchroom story. So why do we have this contradiction in dates? This is slop. That's all this is, slop. These fuckers were sloppy. Sloppy. All right, moving on. This is all going to be surrounding these events within the book depository. And so this next statement none of these are witness statements. These are reports that are written about witness statements made to them written by the FBI. Okay, so this next one is an FBI report documenting Lieutenant John C. Day, Identification Bureau. Identification Bureau's crime scene. Okay. Dallas Police Department furnishes copies of photographs which were taken by the Dallas Police Department immediately after the assassination of President on the 6th floor from which the assassin fired the rifle. Photographs were also obtained of the rifle lying in the exact spot where the assassin either dropped or placed it on leaving the 6th floor. Lieutenant Day also furnished photographs of the location of Dallas Police Officer J.D. Tippett's police cruiser, showing the blood spot on the street where Officer Tippett fell. Photographs were also obtained of items in Lee Harvey Oswald's possession at the time of his arrest. These items are being maintained in the Dallas file. Lieutenant Day advised that his department had made a meticulous search of the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository and other pertinent areas immediately after the shooting on November 22, 1963, and had furnished all of the evidence obtained to the FBI on November 26, 1963. All right, FBI report dated November 29, 63. M.L. Baker, patrolman, Dallas Police Department, Dallas, Texas, advised that he went into the building of the Texas School Book Depository shortly after President John F. Kennedy had been shot. He stated that he and Mr. Roy Truly, the manager, observed Lee Harvey Oswald on the 2nd floor of the building, and he asked Truly who that was, and Truly told him Oswald was all right, that he worked in the building. He stated they proceeded up the stairs and did not see Oswald anymore until after his arrest by the Dallas Police Department. So here we have more contradiction, and this is dated November 29th, 1963, still about 3 weeks before the memo written by J.W. Fritz. Here, once again, it says that Baker observed this man on the 2nd floor, and it says here, he stated that they proceeded up on the stairs and did not see Oswald anymore until after his arrest by the Dallas Police Department. Okay, so here he's completely lying about the fact that he observed him on the 3rd or 4th floor, right? So he did observe him on the 3rd or 4th floor, and then this memo comes out stating that he did not see them on the stairs. This is the thing that catches me as blatant and obvious. So it says here, the manager observed Lee Harvey Oswald on the 2nd floor of the building. He asked Truly who that was, and Truly told him Oswald was all right and that he worked in the building. And then here we have a completely different thought. He stated they proceeded up the stairs and did not see Oswald anymore. Okay, why would you put that in there? It's a negative. You're explaining a negative. You would never do that in a police report. If I was the guy writing this report, I would write this out, and then I would make a statement along the lines of, the next time I observed Oswald was in the Dallas Police Department after his arrest. I wouldn't say, he stated he proceeded up the stairs and did not see Oswald anymore. Here you're linking the seeing Oswald and proceeding up the stairs into one thought. So you proceeded up the stairs and didn't see Oswald. This is guilt. This is obvious guilt. But really, you wouldn't understand this if you didn't know how to interpret a police report. So, it's brutally obvious to me that this is a cover-up. He obviously saw him on the 3rd or 4th floor and continued up and let him down, and then he comes out of the building and gets into the Nash Rambler. Okay, so November 30th, 1963, Lieutenant Carl Day, Dallas Police Department, stated he found the brown paper bag shaped like a gun case near the scene of the shooting on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building. He stated the manager, Mr. Truly, saw this bag at the time it was taken into possession by Lieutenant Day. Truly, according to Day, had not seen this bag before. No one else viewed it. Truly furnished similar brown paper from the roll that was used in packing books by the Texas School Book Depository. This paper was examined by the FBI laboratory and found not to be identical with the paper gun case found at the scene of the shooting. The Dallas police have not exhibited this to anyone else. It was immediately locked up by Day, kept in his possession until it was turned over to FBI agent Drain, that's Vince Drain, for transmittal to the laboratory. It was examined by the laboratory, returned to the Dallas Police Department November 24th, 1963, locked up in the crime laboratory. This bag was returned to Agent Drain on November 26, 63, and taken back to the FBI laboratory. Lieutenant Day stated that no one has identified this bag to the Dallas Police Department. Next memo, FBI, December 2nd, 1963. On this date, Special Agents Odom and McNeely went to the Texas School Book Depository building, 411 Elm Street, Dallas, Texas, where R.S. Truly, an employee of the TSBD, made available paper and tape in the shipping area of the TSBD on the first floor. He advised that while Lee Harvey Oswald was an employee of the Texas School Book Depository from October 16th, 63 to November 22nd, 63, he had access to this area. The paper he made available was described as 60-pound paper, 24 inches wide, and he stated this is used in all wrapping at TSBD. The tape he made available is gummed brown paper tape, 3 inches wide, made on 60-pound paper stock. He stated that all paper and tape are ordered from the same sources, and the suppliers for all tape and paper used in TSBD since October 16th, 63 are the same sources. Using the original paper sack found at the window on the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository November 22nd, 63, from which the shots killing President John F. Kennedy were apparently fired, a replica sack was made in the same manner as the original had apparently been made, to the same dimensions, using the paper and tape provided by Mr. Truly. Mr. Roy Truly, warehouse manager, Texas School Book Depository Building, was exhibited in Associated Press photograph described as DN5-1122-63, Dallas, Texas, depicting an individual standing in the entrance of the Texas School Book Depository Building who resembled Lee Harvey Oswald. Mr. Truly, after viewing this photograph, stated that picture resembles Oswald, but it's not Lee Oswald, it's Billy Lovelady. Huh. That's funny because he's probably talking about the Alton's photo. He's probably showing him the Alton's photo because they had all this stuff by then. December 2nd? Yeah, they had all that stuff. So he's showing him the Alton's photo. And he's like, yeah, that's Billy Lovelady. That's funny. That's really funny to me. Because you got, 60 years of controversy, which is bullshit. Mr. Roy Truly, warehouse manager, Texas School Depository, advised that no one by the name of Joseph Casala had applied to work there. Joseph C-S-A-L-A. Guys, let's pull the information on Joseph Casala. I've never heard this. C-S-A-L-A. All right. We have here Roy Truly, 4932 J Drive, Dallas, Texas, superintendent, Texas School Book Depository. 411 Elm Street, Dallas, advised to the best of his recollection on November 22nd, 63, that Lee Harvey Oswald was wearing either a white t-shirt or a light-colored shirt and light trousers. He stated that most of the employees usually worked in their T-shirts and that there was a small room on the first floor of the Texas School Depository where the employees could smoke, play dominoes, and hang up their shirts and coats. Mr. Truly was shown a rust brown sport shirt with a hole in the right sleeve and the elbow, which according to the arresting officers was being worn by Oswald at the time he was arrested on November 22nd, 63. Truly stated that the shirt looked familiar to him, but as previously stated, he believed that Oswald was wearing light clothing and had on a white t-shirt or light sport coat shirt. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank fucking God. Roy Truly, a voice of reason. What the fuck was William Seymour wearing that day at the book depository? He was wearing the light brown jacket that he was captured in the Robert Hughes film, and he's wearing underneath it, it looked like either a white or like a light blue collared shirt, right? Or maybe they would call it a sport shirt back then. I'm assuming it was like a polo shirt, but it was underneath his light colored jacket. But here we have, let me read this again because it's extremely important. Mr. Truly was shown a rust brown sport shirt with a hole in the right sleeve at the elbow, which according to the arresting officers was being worn by Oswald at the time he was arrested on November 22nd, 1963. Truly stated that the shirt looked familiar to him, but as previously stated, he believes that Oswald was wearing light clothing and had on a white t-shirt or a light colored sport shirt. Yeah, it's accurate. Next page, in connection with the information furnished by Conrad Galvin, Galvan, 3989 Park Lane, Dallas, and it looks like David Torres, Torres, 3619 Almazan, Dallas. It is noted that Mr. Roy S. Truly, superintendent of the Texas School Book Depository, advised S.A. J. Doyle Williams and Nat A. Pinkston that several days prior to November 22nd, 1963, a Mr. Warren Castor of the Southwestern Publishing Company came to his office with 2 rifles, which he showed to him. Truly examined the weapons, turned them to Castor, and then Castor departed the building. This information has been previously reported. I don't think that's a big deal at all. People make a big deal of it. I don't think so. I'm more convinced that one of Honest Joe's runners brought the rifles into the book depository, as was seen moments before. the assassination. That is I believe that is more possible than this. So, although that's probably not very possible either. Roy Truly, Texas School Book Depository, on December 5th, 63, at Memphis, Tennessee. Dr. Clement Carter, senior surgeon, U.S. Public Health Service Hospital, telephonically advised S.A. Cyril F. Bush, B-U-S-C-H, that he knew of one Roy Truly of Dallas, Texas, possibly identical with the employer of Lee Harvey Oswald at the Texas School Book Depository. Dr. Cotter furnished the following information concerning the Truly whom he thought might be identical with this individual. From 1953 to 1955, Truly worked as a chauffeur and general handyman for Dr. Andrew Tomb, T-O-M-B, who operated a clinic on Hallettsville Highway, Victoria, Texas, where Dr. Cotter was assigned as a student physician for 4 months in 1954. Truly was a peculiar person in that he frequently carried a pet parakeet with him on his finger. Truly was reputed to be an experienced sniper, and on one occasion told Dr. Cotter of an experience in Europe during World War II sniping at Germans, after which encounter he was captured and commended by the German commander. In 1957, while Dr. Cotter was practicing at Galveston, Texas, Truly visited his office there, said he was selling stock, and gave a Dallas, Texas address. In 1960, Dr. Tomb died, but Roy Truly is well known to Dr. George Constant, a psychiatrist at Victoria, and should be known to other former employees of Dr. Tomb. Dr. Cotter described Roy Truly as a white male, now 40 to 45 years of age, 6'2" inches tall, weighing 200 pounds, with a pot belly, brown wavy hair, dark eyes, some gold on front teeth, a cigar smoker who was in 1957 married to a woman named Jackie. Well, that's interesting. Don't know how much of it's true. At Dallas, Texas, the following investigation was conducted by S.A. James W. Bookout and George W.H. Carlson. On December 5th, 1963, Mr. Warren Castor, manager, Southwestern Publishing Company, room 203, 411 Elm Street, Dallas, Texas, advised that he purchased 2 rifles at Sanger Brothers in Dallas, Texas on November 20th, 1963. One, a 30-06 Mauser by Kodiak, and a .22 Remington single shot. He stated they were in cardboard cartons, and he brought the 2 rifles to the Texas School Book Depository building after he purchased them during his lunch hour on November 20th, 1963. He stated that prior to bringing the rifles to his office, he showed the rifles to Mr. Roy Truly, warehouse superintendent, TSBD, whose office is also on the 2nd floor. He stated he did not show the 2 rifles to anyone else. He stated at approximately 4:30 p.m. on November 20th, 1963, he carried the 2 rifles in separate cardboard cartons to his 1962 Ford Galaxy and put them in the trunk of his car. He said that he did not show the rifles to anyone outside the building. He also advised that both the .22 and 30-06 rifles have open sights and not telescopic sights. On December 5th, 1963, Mr. J.I. Smith, Dallas County Sheriff's Office, advised that the first parking area to the west of the Texas School Book Depository building is used by the employees of the Dallas County Sheriff's Office, and there is no attendant present. He stated that he recalls that he was working at approximately 4:10 p.m. on November 19th, 1963, but he did not see anyone showing a rifle to anyone. Now, one thing that pops out right here, you have a couple different incidents that seem to have happened outside the book depository on or around November 20th, and possibly the 19th as well. So you have one incident where 2 men who seemingly match the descriptions of Ruby and Oswald go to the back of a vehicle parked in that parking lot, and they take out and they show rifles, or they move rifles from one car to another, or something along those lines, right? Then you have the incident on November 20th where allegedly you have 3 persons out by the fence at the grassy knoll pointing rifles over the fence, which was seen by 2 Dallas patrolmen, but by the time they get there, those men are gone, right? I presume those men to be Jack Ruby, William Seymour, and Jack Valenti. That's my suspicions, because it was stated by Pereira that Oswald met with Jack Ruby and Jack Valenti on that day. Right? But definitely not Oswald. And who was working at the book depository, in my opinion, based on all the evidence we've seen? William Seymour, clearly, right? So I concluded that incident on November 20th was Jack Ruby, Jack Valenti, and William Seymour at the fence on the grassy knoll. But that doesn't seem to have anything to do with these 2 rifles that were brought into the building by Mr. Castor, right? Next page. On December 31st, 1963, Mrs. Frances Hernandez, residence 1917 Annex, Dallas, Texas, was re-interviewed in her place of employment, McHale Sportswear Company, 2nd floor, 501 Elm Street. Mrs. Hernandez advised that she recalls it was raining the day before President John Fitzgerald Kennedy was to come to Dallas, Texas, and that she had 2 of her fellow workers, Mrs. Henrietta Vargas and Mrs. Josephine Salinas, were leaving their parking lot west of the Tech School Book Depository building. They had to stop because a 1955 or 56 Buick was in the exit way, and she noticed 2 men standing behind the Buick. The older man reached into the trunk of the car and handed a rifle to the younger man. Yeah, this is the incident I just mentioned. She said she particularly noticed this activity since it reminded her of a man working at McHale Sportswear who had gone deer hunting, and she thought these men were going to do the same thing. She only saw the back of the older man's head and can only say the younger man was rather slim. She cannot describe either because of the 2 men, she cannot describe either of these 2 men as being identical to Lee Harvey Oswald or Jack Ruby, and thought of the above incident only after the president was assassinated. She said she and her friends were frightened and reluctant to become involved and were very excited and confused for some time, but now she has had time to think about this. She is certain of the above facts. On December 31st, 1963, Mrs. Henrietta Vargas, residence 511 Capitol Street, Dallas, Texas, was interviewed at her place of employment, McHale Sportswear Company. Mrs. Vargas advised that she and 2 of her fellow workers at McHale Sportswear Company, Mrs. Frances Hernandez and Josephine Salinas, were leaving their parking lot behind the TSBD building when they observed 2 men standing near a light-colored automobile, make unknown. She said that she could not recall whether this was the Tuesday or Thursday before President John F. Kennedy came to Dallas and was assassinated, but she does recall that it was raining at the time. Mrs. Vargas said that she noticed that the older man took a rifle out of the trunk of his car and gave it to the younger man, who walked toward the railroad tracks west of the Tech School Book Depository building. She did not see the face of the younger man and cannot describe him, and she does not recall his getting into the automobile. She did not see the face of the older man, only the back of his head, and she has no idea of who he was. She said that she could not identify either of these men as Lee Harvey Oswald or Jack Ruby, since she did not see their faces. She recalls the older man was of medium height and build, and the younger man appeared to be rather slim. On December 31st, 63, Mrs. Josephine Salinas, residence 13740 Birch Lawn, was interviewed at her place of employment, McHale Sportswear. Ms. Salinas advised that the day before President John F. Kennedy was killed, she and 2 of her fellow workers, Mrs. Henrietta Vargas and Mrs. Frances Hernandez, were leaving the parking lot west of the Texas School Book Depository building. She recalls it was raining and wondered whether the president would be able to be seen in the parade scheduled for the next day, and noticed that there were 2 men standing near the rear of a 1955 or 56 Buick, which was blocking the exit road. The older man took out a rifle out of the trunk of the car and gave it to the younger man. She did not see the face of the older man since she could only observe him from his back and could not describe him further. The younger man, who was of slender build, walked away from the Buick carrying the rifle, but she did not see where he went or whether he got into an automobile. Mrs. Salinas advised she cannot describe either of these 2 men she observed as being identical to Lee Harvey Oswald or Jack Ruby. Next page. The following investigation was conducted by S.A. Nat A. Pinkston at Dallas, Texas on December 7, 1963. Let me just comment here real quickly. So I went through some forums yesterday, and it appears as though S.A. Nat Pinkston is also connected to the American Legion that Jack Kaysen was connected to. So some people were suspecting, of course we got no information, we're never going to have information on this, but many people were suspecting that some of these orders in the assassination were passed from Pinkston to Jack Kaysen. But again, that's pure speculation. Is it possible? Sure, it's possible. Is it another one of these guilt by association things? Absolutely. Are we ever going to have an answer to that angle of things? I highly fucking doubt it. Agent Pinkston has interviewed Mr. Roy Truly, warehouse superintendent, Tech School Book Depository, on numerous occasions and since November 22nd, 63. The description of Roy Truly, furnished by Dr. Clement Cotter, senior surgeon, U.S. Public Health Service, Hospital, Memphis, Tennessee, could not be a description of Mr. Roy Truly of the Texas School Book Depository. Check of the Dallas City directories from 63 back to including 1951 each year shows Mr. Roy Truly employed by the Texas School Book Depository in Dallas, Texas. So not the same guy. Okay. What does it say? What is this here? It seems to be a report. Other individuals and organizations involved of interview. Roy S. Truly, November 63, says here, Oswald was determined to still be on the premises. He was seen by Roy S. Truly, warehouse superintendent, and a police officer in a small lunchroom on the second floor. He was not questioned at the time, inasmuch as Mr. Truly identified him to the officer as being an employee of the building. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Truly accounted for the whereabouts of all his employees, except Oswald, and so advised the police. Identified on a bus. A short time later, Oswald was observed by his former landlady, Mrs. Mary E. Bledsoe, 621 North Marsalis Avenue, boarding a city bus about 7 blocks from the scene of the assassination. Mrs. Bledsoe, who was riding on the bus, stated that he appeared to be somewhat nervous. She also noted that Oswald was wearing dirty clothes, a marked change from his usual neat appearance. Cecil J. McWaters, driver of the bus, selected Oswald from a police lineup as resembling a passenger who entered his bus on November 22nd, 63, in the general vicinity of the assassination. Mr. McWaters was unable to identify or to definitely establish the time or place where Oswald boarded the bus, but recalled it was shortly after the assassination. He remembered commenting to his passenger, "I wonder where they shot the president." He said the passenger replied, "They shot him in the temple." Okay, so this is complete bullshit. It was Roy Milton Jones who he actually saw on his bus. In accounting for his activities on the afternoon of November 22nd, 63, Oswald stated he was on the second floor of the Texas School Book Depository building at the time the building was searched. He stated Mr. Truly, the building superintendent, and a police officer entered the room, and Mr. Truly identified Oswald to the officer as an employee. Oswald related that he then took the Coca-Cola, which he had just purchased, to the first floor. See, this is all nonsense. Like, it was this never fucking happened, right? We have the statements from fucking Baker and from Fritz, who clearly indicate the incident happened on the third or fourth floor. There was no coke involved. It happened on the stairwell. Okay, so everything that we're going over here that's in this FBI report is pure fiction. Pure fucking fiction. Oswald, and remember, we don't know what Oswald said. From the time Oswald got put in custody, if it's not on film, it's a lie. We don't have a fucking idea what Oswald said at any point after the time he got arrested. All right, so it says Oswald related that he then took the Coca-Cola, which he had just purchased, to the first floor, where he stood around and then had lunch in the employee's lunchroom on the second floor. Thereafter, he stated he went outside the building, stood around for 5 to 10 minutes, and then went home because he did not believe there was going to be any more work that day due to the confusion in the building. Oswald advised that following arrival at his residence, he left to attend a movie where he was apprehended by Dallas police. On subsequent interview on November 23rd, 1963, Oswald denied telling Mr. Frazier that the purpose of his visit to Irving, Texas on the night of November 21st, 63 was to obtain some curtain rods from Mrs. Payne. Oswald stated information previously furnished by him to the effect that he rode a bus from his place of employment to his residence on November 22nd, 1963 was not entirely true. On this latter interview, Oswald stated he did board a city bus at his place of employment. But, and then it cuts off, and we know that whole thing's a fabrication. Like, we can't believe a goddamn word they say that Oswald said. We just don't know. We have no information at all. Zero. We got to believe a bunch of fucking liars, and I'm not willing to do that unless it's corroboration, which sometimes we get from liars inadvertently. It is noted in an earlier report in this matter, Mr. O.V. Campbell, Vice President and Secretary, Texas School Book Depository, and co-owner, I should add, Elman Houston Streets, Dallas, Texas, advised on November 26, 1963, that while he had not observed anyone fire any shots from his building on November 22nd, 63, he had observed an individual wearing a construction-type hat who was talking about seeing an individual fire from the window of the Texas School Book Depository building, and he noted that a police officer had taken this individual's name. He's talking about Howard Brennan. On December 17, 1963, Mr. Campbell advised that S.A. Kenneth B. Jackson that, as best he could recall, this individual was wearing a white helmet and work clothes with possibly red lettering on the helmet. He described the man as white, about 5'9" or 5'10", possibly 165, possibly 35 years of age. He said this man was talking with Dallas Police Department officer. A review of information in this matter indicated that the individual observed by Mr. Campbell may possibly have been identical to Howard Leslie Brennan, who has been previously interviewed in this matter. On December 17th, 1963, Brennan advised S.A. Kenneth B. Jackson he was employed with Wallace Beard Construction Company as a steam fitter, and he was doing prefabrication work at a location to the rear of the Texas School Book Depository building on November 22nd, 63. He is still employed with this company, but is now working at the construction site of the Republic National Bank building, Dallas. He stated he continues to reside at 6814 Woodard, Dallas. On December 17, 1963, Brennan was introduced to Mr. O.V. Campbell by S.A. Kenneth B. Jackson, and neither individual showed recognition of the other at first. Mr. Campbell was of the opinion that Brennan was very likely the person he had referred to as having conversed with the Dallas police officer immediately after the shooting of President Kennedy on November 22, 1963. He indicated that possibly his recollection of a white construction-type helmet on the individual he had observed could possibly have been a gray helmet, which, according to Brennan, was what Brennan, wore on November 22nd, 63, with the name of his company, Wallace Beard, stenciled in black letters on the front of the helmet, and at the time, a small black name sticker bearing Brennan's name. Mr. Campbell observed a round white badge bearing number 130, with the words Wallace Beard Republic Bank Tower, and indicated that possibly his recollection of red letters on the white background could have been from observing his badge, which, according to Brennan, was worn by him on November 22nd, 63, as at the present. The entire badge was not in red lettering, but the large digits 130 in the center were red, and the word Wallace was in blue letters. The word Beard was in red letters, and the words Republic Bank Tower were in blue letters. Brennan furnished his own description as a white male, 5'7.5", 155 to 160, age 44. As Campbell and Brennan talked, Mr. Campbell stated he became a little more sure that Brennan was the individual he had seen conversing with the Dallas police officer November 22nd, 63. Mr. Brennan stated that he was unable to recall Campbell at all, but remarked that he himself had talked to a Dallas police officer at that time, that Campbell could have observed his conversation with the police officer without his knowledge. Brennan did state, however, that he felt reasonably sure that the person referred to by Campbell would have been himself. Mr. Roy Truly, superintendent, Texas School Book Depository, stated he was in company with Mr. Campbell on November 22nd, 63, at the time of the motorcade of President Kennedy passed in front of the book depository. He stated that immediately after the shooting at that time, he and Mr. Campbell apparently became separated by the surging crowd, and therefore he would not be able to comment regarding any persons observed by Mr. Campbell at the time. Mr. Truly furnished this information to S.A. Kenneth B. Jackson on December 17th, 1963. Next page, dated August 31st, 1964. Roy Truly's handwritten in the top right corner. Investigation and evidence CC'd to Mr. Rankin, Willens, and Redlick. Mr. J. Edgar Hoover, FBI, Department of Justice. Dear Mr. Hoover, in order to establish that no curtain rods were found in the Texas School Book Depository building following the assassination, we request that your bureau interview Roy S. Truly, building superintendent, to inquire whether he knows of any curtain rods having been found in the building after November 22nd. We also request that you ask Mr. Truly whether it would be customary for such discovery to be called to his attention. Your cooperation in this matter is appreciated. Signed, J. Lee Rankin. Yeah, and there's no curtain rods, okay? Frazier didn't even drive fucking Oswald to work that day, obviously. Okay, next one. Again to Mr. Hoover. Dear Mr. Hoover, this letter confirms a telephonic response made by Mr. Norman Redlick of the commission staff to Mr. George, what does that say? Sotheby, something like that, of your bureau. Is really fuzzy. We requested that Roy Truly be interviewed and asked about the following questions. What are the appropriate weights of the rolling readers' cartons with books included? What are the weights of the remaining 2 cartons with books included, which were found at the southeast corner window of the 6th floor of the Texas School Book Depository building? And 3, are there any cartons which are too heavy to be moved by one male individual? Your cooperation is appreciated. Signed, J. Lee Rankin. All right. U.S. DOJ FBI, September 15, 64, by courier service. Honorable J. Lee Rankin, General Counsel, President's Commission. Dear Mr. Rankin, this will confirm a telephonic request received by Mr. George H. Scatterday of this Bureau from Mr. Norman Redlick of your staff on September 11th, 1964, regarding cartons at the Tech Schoolbook Depository. The approximate weight of each of the rolling reader's cartons with contents was 8 pounds. The average weight of each of the 2 cartons at the window with contents was 55 pounds. Mr. Roy S. Truly, warehouse superintendent, advised there were no cartons on the 6th floor of the Tech Schoolbook Depository, which could not be handled by one male individual. Mr. Scatterday furnished the above information telephonically to Mr. Redlick on September 11, 1964, pursuant to Mr. Redlick's request. Sincerely yours, J. Edgar Hoover. All right, next one. United States Department of Justice, FBI, Dallas, Texas, August 21st, 64, titled Lee Harvey Oswald. By letter dated August 6, 64, the President's Commission requested additional investigation be conducted concerning the possibility that Lee Harvey Oswald had a telescopic sight mounted on a rifle and sighted at the Irving Sports Shop. We're talking about Dial Ryder. 221 East Irving Boulevard, Irving, Texas. The President's Commission noted previous testimony regarding this matter has raised questions concerning which they desired additional investigation. It was desired the following persons be interviewed: Mrs. Gertrude Hunter, Roy Truly, Charles Woodrow, Greener, friends of Mrs. Hunter whose names were furnished as Mr. and Mrs. Dominic, as well as determine the date of the Irving Richland Hills High School football game, which occurred November 1963. On August 11, 1964, Mrs. Gertrude Hunter, 141 South Hastings in Irving, furnished the following information regarding the proposed trip of her relatives, James and Doris Domney of Houston, Texas. Mrs. Hunter stated that the Domneys had not directly told her they planned to visit her in November 1963, but that her sister-in-law and mother of Doris Domney, one Mrs. Patterson, had written to her that the Domneys were planning a visit to the Dallas, Texas area in November 63 and would probably visit her in Irving, Texas. Mrs. Hunter stated that Mrs. Patterson died on or about June 13th, 1964. Yeah, this fucking memo was going nowhere, right? Mrs. Hunter does not have the letter in which Mrs. Patterson mentioned the Domneys' planned visit to the Dallas area in November 63. Mrs. Hunter stated that the Domneys did not visit her in Irving, Texas in November 63. Mrs. Hunter furnished the address of James and Doris Domney as 8133 Loxley, Houston, Texas. She does not know if the Domneys still have their old station wagon, but now might have a newer Chrysler automobile. On August 11, 64, Rex Andrews, police officer, Irving, Texas, advised that the football game between Irving High School and Richland Hills High School was played on Friday, November 8, 1963 at Richland Hills, a suburb of Fort Worth. On August 13, 64, Roy S. Truly, superintendent, Tech Schoolbook Depository, 411 Elm, advised his company does not utilize a time clock system for its employees to check in and out of work. A notation is merely made that a particular employee is at work in the morning and still at work at the end of the day, at which time the individual is credited with 8 hours of work. Warehouse employees are given 45 minutes for lunch, and although it is possible for employees to take a few minutes longer, any excess absences would be noted and the employee would have wages deducted from his pay. Truly does not recall Oswald being away from his employment at any time on an extended lunch period. Mr. Truly advised he believed Oswald rode to work from Irving, Texas with a fellow employee, Wesley Frazier, in Frazier's automobile. To his knowledge, Oswald was not known to have an automobile of his own and arrived at work either by bus or riding with Frazier. Truly stated Mr. H.S. Aiken, A-I-K-E-N, a lead man in the warehouse, keeps the daily employment records of each employee. This is another guy I haven't seen a single statement from or nothing. Mr. H.S. Aiken, A-I-K-E-N. Let's see if we can't pull everything on Mr. Aiken. Truly stated that while a warehouse employee, such as Oswald, would have noted on a bill of lading that he was the particular employee filling the book order, the particular bills of lading would not indicate the time of the day the work was started or finished, nor would they indicate the amount of time utilized in filling a particular order. Mr. Truly noted a small book orders can be filled in a few minutes, while large orders may take hours to fill. Mr. Truly stated further that the orders and bills of lading are filed by towns and cities, and that to locate a particular order filled by Oswald on November 6th or 7th, 1963 would be an enormous task. In addition, in the event such bills of lading were located, they would not contain a notation as to the time of the day the order was filled by Oswald or the amount of time taken to fill the particular order. Consequently, Mr. Truly stated such a review would not determine how much time Oswald was off on his lunch period on the dates in question. Mr. Truly concluded that his company did not have any record which would indicate an employee was gone for a longer period of time than 45 minutes on his lunch period. On August 13, 1964, Mr. H.S. Aiken, lead man, Texas School Book Depository, advised he keeps the daily employment records of warehouse employees. All right, so it looks like that ends there. Picks up on the next report. September 2nd, 1964. Mr. Roy S. Truly, warehouse superintendent, Texas School Book Depository, advised that it is his recollection that the 3 cartons of books stacked up on the 6th floor, which were apparently used as support for the rifle, and the 1 carton apparently used as a seat, contained the Think and Do books, People and Progress, and the Second Rolling Reader books. His records indicate that George Banta Company, Incorporated, Menasha, Wisconsin, on September 26, 63, shipped Texas School Book Depository order number 1327 containing the Think and Do books, People and Progress, via freight, and they were in railroad car number 30465, Milwaukee. The boxcar was switched to the siding in Dallas, Texas by the Texas and Pacific Railroad and unloaded by employees of the Texas School Book Depository on October 2nd, 1963. Scott Forsman and Company, Panola, Illinois, shipped Texas School Book Depository order number 2377-2380 containing the Second Rolling Reader books on October 9th, 1963 via LaPorte Transit Company, Incorporated, their freight bill number H34680 from Panola, Illinois to Chicago, Illinois. From Chicago, Illinois to Dallas, Texas, the shipment was handled by East Texas Motor Freight, their freight bill number 610450001, and was delivered by that company in Dallas, Texas on October 14th, 1963. Mr. Truly stated that from the time these cartons of books were received at the Texas School Book Depository until the 4 cartons were picked up by the Dallas Police Department as evidence in the assassination of President Kennedy, the only employee who could possibly have handled the cartons were Harold Dean Norman, Carl Edward Jones, former employees and present employees Edward Shields, Daniel Garcia Ark, Jack Edwin Doherty, Buell Wesley Frazier, Charles Douglas Givens, James Earl Jarman Jr., Frankie Kaiser, Roy Edward Lewis, Billy Nolan Lovelady, Eddie Piper, William Hoyt Shelley, Troy Eugene West, and Bonnie Ray Williams. Mr. Truly stated that when the floor paneling was done at the TSBD building, any movement of the cartons of books was handled by these employees listed above. None of the employees handling these cartons ever wear gloves. Mr. Truly related that within 15 minutes after the shots were fired at President Kennedy, there were numerous people all over the Texas School Book Depository building, and that he did not know any of them. Okay, hang on a second. What did I just catch here? Mr. Truly related that within 15 minutes after the shots were fired at President Kennedy, there were numerous people all over the building. 15 minutes. We're talking 12:45. What does that mean? That means that that's way after everything that went on allegedly with Baker and Truly, even at 12:37 and 12:38, everything that went on with William Seymour, everything that happened of any relevance was done at that point in time, and this is 15 minutes later. He's not saying 5 minutes later, which would have been the case if it was him and Baker who then went up the stairs to the roof and then came back down. Okay, that's 15 minutes later. Big discrepancy there. Mr. Truly related that within 15 minutes after the shots were fired at President Kennedy, there were numerous people all over the Texas School Book Depository building, and he did not know any of them. He assured that many of them were law enforcement officers, although they were not in uniform. A number of uniformed officers of the Dallas Police Department were making a systematic search of the building and were guarding the doors to the building. About 30 minutes after the shots were fired, Mr. Truly was on the 6th floor of his building, and a number of newspaper, radio, and television reporters and photographers were on that floor, as well as Captain Will Fritz of the Dallas Police Department. Mr. Truly said he had no idea who these news media people were, but knew that they did represent the news media because a number of them were trying to interview him. He does not know who may have handled any cartons on the 6th floor of the building from the time the shots were fired until they were removed by Dallas Police Department, except he is positive that none of the Texas School Book Depository employees touched the boxes except those listed above, who may have handled them prior to the assassination. Mr. Truly stated he believes it is very possible that spectators and others who are not connected with any law enforcement agency or news media were wandering around the Texas School Book Depository building the afternoon following the assassination. He's positive as to which of the Texas School Book Depository employees could have touched these cartons of books, but he has no idea which of them may handle the cartons following the assassination. On September 2nd, 1964, fingerprints and palm prints of the following individuals who were employees of the Texas School Book Depository on November 22nd, 1963, were submitted to the latent fingerprint section of the Identification Division of the FBI for comparison with the identifiable latent fingerprints and palm prints on the 4 cardboard cartons. Roy Truly, Carl Edward Jones, Harold Dean Norman, Edward Shields. It should be noted that on June 15, 1964, fingerprints and palm prints were obtained from the following employees of the Texas School Book Depository and submitted to the latent fingerprint section of the Identification Division of the FBI for comparison with the identifiable latent prints and palm prints on the 4 cardboard cartons. Danny Garcia, Jack Doherty, Buell Frazier, and all those guys, all the names we just listed. Troy Eugene West. I don't know that name. Let's pull everything on Troy Eugene West, guys. All right, what are we moving into now? We're moving into more of the statements regarding the laying of the plywood. But we're on page 59 out of 116. Probably got 3 more days of this to go. But we're going to call it quits for today. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We're going to continue here tomorrow. Please, if you haven't yet, go and subscribe to my Substack. It's bloodyhistory.substack.com. It's $5 a month, and you're getting a whole new daily show. And you'll probably get some other miscellaneous messages from me throughout the month. But we're covering all the Holocaust stuff, all the bullshit Holocaust stuff, the fakery that was the Holocaust. We're covering World War II, Mein Kampf, Hitler's speeches, you name it. And we're going to be covering all things World War II at bloodyhistory.substack.com. And that's going to do it for me today. If you haven't bought the book yet, please buy the book. You can get it on Amazon.com. You can pick up the ebook for only $10. If you want a signed copy, I have 2 hardcovers left. If I can dig them up out of a box after having moved, but they're $75 each. If you're international, it's going to require a lot of shipping. But if you're domestic, it's $75 including shipping. So that's going to do it for me today, guys. I will see you over at Substack, and if not, I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks.